Hello and welcome to the Aftershock. I'm Alex Morgan. I'm here with my co-host, Jamin Moore. And for the very first time joining the show, San Jose Earthquakes General Manager Chris Leitch. Chris, how are you doing? Thank you for joining us today.
Doing great, thanks. Hope the same is true with you. Thanks for having me on.
So it's been a really interesting offseason. In fact, you could even probably go back to the last window of last year, where there seems to be now a plan in place that you must feel this attack is in pretty good shape because the investments have really come on the defensive side of the ball. Can you talk to us a little bit about kind of your thought process coming into the offseason?
Mm-hmm. The good thing from last year is we showed an ability to score some goals, and at times throughout the year to keep good possession of the ball and be dangerous. But then also, I think, leaked more goals than what I think anyone in our group would have liked, whether that's the structure or personnel. And so, look, we've made a conscious effort to shore up that part of it with the hope of us being as dangerous on the attack as we have been, but also maybe a little bit more robust, harder to break down defensively, as you'll see with some different personnel as well as kind of the structure that the staff has put in place.
The latest piece to this new defense is Jonathan Mensah, who just arrived at preseason camp a few days ago. Obviously you have the ACL injury to Nathan. Can you talk us from that moment, what your decision-making process was? Was that the thing that accelerated the need to go and get another center back in this roster?
Yeah, look, it's tough for me to even address your question without first just addressing, Nathan, who's been a warrior for this team, for our club, and no doubt suffered a major injury at a bad time in our preseason. There's never a good time, but we were mere weeks away from the start. So not only does it hurt just on the field, but also with his teammates, right? Knowing that they lost such a kind of foundational piece of the team. So that kind of signaled to us that we needed to move quick, and we wanted to make sure that as best we could would address the hole that Nathan's injury would leave, and not just the quality on the field, but also the things around the peripheral, right? His leadership ability, his connection he has with his teammates. And so with Jonathan, we feel like not only do we have a really good player on the field, but we have a leader, someone that's MLS battle tested, that's been there. He's got plenty of international experience. He has an MLS ring. He's been a captain. So as hard as it was to lose Nathan to that injury, we feel very fortunate that Jonathan is a pretty good acquisition for this club, although he's going to take, a little bit of time to, get comfortable in his new surroundings.
So 5 minutes before Tom Bogert said that you were signing him, I get a text waking me up in the morning saying, "We just lost Mensah to you guys. You're signing him." Another team thought that they had him signed. Maybe you can't tell us a lot, but what can you tell us about the urgency there and what, you might need to do in order to make that happen, particularly when he's close to signing with another team?
Yeah, look, it's Jonathan Mensah, right? Like I said, he has a lot of quality and he's proven in MLS. So without going into too detail about who we were competing with, to be honest with you, our main concern was taking our list of prospects that we weeded through very quickly in this process when Nathan went down. I think Nathan went down. I think we got the scan back at 1 on Sunday. I think our team was assembled by 2 on that Sunday, starting to get ready to look at our options. And then very, very shortly thereafter, through a very detailed process, Jonathan was the one. And then at that point, there wasn't a whole lot of time to deliberate or go back and forth. It was pretty darn quick, and that was deliberate as well, both from a competition standpoint as well as to fill the need as early as possible to give him the new acquisition, in this case Jonathan, as much time to get into camp, understand our game model, and put him in a position to be successful before this season starts. So there wasn't a lot of time in this. It did go very quick.
Your biggest offseason piece, and for a reported $3 million signing fee, you were able to bring back Carlos Grezzo, no stranger to Lucci or MLS, but the past few years has been, at Augsburg in the Bundesliga. What was that like, overall to have that conversation? And particularly, what was like Lucci's voice in this search maybe for a defensive midfielder in the offseason? Was it always Carlos, or had you cast a really wide net and it just seemed to the stars aligned on Carlos?
I think we casted a really wide net, obviously, with Remedi not coming back into the team this year. We have Jutson there who, has had really good stretches for us and someone that we'll count on this year. And then we picked up Michael Baldissimo that we feel like can play in a couple of different positions in that center of the park, but still felt like, we needed that piece in the center part of that field, especially to, as I said earlier, address being a little bit harder to break down defensively. If you look statistically speaking, a little too porous there in that area. And so, to get someone in there that can do that on the defensive side, but also is a leader and is good on the ball. That's the profile that we were after. We did cast a very broad net, and we went through that list very diligently. In the end, with Carlos, to make no mistake about it, the fact that he had previously played in MLS, actually, and Lucci knew him, although Lucci didn't work too long with him, just a couple months, but enough to know who he was as a person and a competitor.
Right.
But Carlos had played in MLS before. He knows what it's like playing in Dallas in June and traveling on a plane 5 hours, and being a captain and a leader. Obviously, he's coming to us after playing in a couple World Cups. He's playing in a heck of a league in the Bundesliga before he came here, and so there's a number of factors in there. But it came down in the end. That Carlos was our number one. But yeah, it was a thorough process.
He was the club record signing, the biggest transfer fee in club history from what we understand. Does that add pressure to the process for you? Is there anything that changes when you're committing, that much value to a player?
I'd say no. I mean, look, there's always pressure when you add a player. I don't care how much he costs, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not going to be the price tag that you get him for, the salary. It's about the impact he's going to make, right? And obviously, there are some players where you have to take different things into consideration. With Carlos, and specifically with his position, we just knew we had to get it right. And time will tell with Carlos. He's been good far, and I strongly believe he's a piece that we needed in that midfield. Again, for the guys that play in front of him, whether that's a back form more robust as well.
The back line on opening day this season could be completely different than what it was on opening day last season. Between Daniel and goal, you have Acapo and Trauco, you have Rodriguez, you have Mensah. In center back positions,
and a new defensive midfielder. Are you happy with where this roster is at in that defensive half at this stage? Are you confident that it's where you need it to be?
Yeah, I think we have a very competitive group. We've added some day in and day out competition as well. We've added some experience. We've added some leadership. So, together with, I think, what the staff has done has been very organized and well put together from a game plan perspective. I feel good about where we are. I get this question a lot. It's like, hey, do you feel good on opening day to put the team out? And are you done? It's like, you're always constantly looking and evaluating things, right? And players come in and out of form. The team has different needs at different parts, whether it's in the preseason or the early parts of the season or, over the summer window or the winter. But if you're taking a snapshot right now, what I can guarantee it is you're going to have a competitive team. You're going to have guys that from every starting position plus the guys coming in or that are, second in their positions that are going to be hungry, nipping on the heels of those that are starting. I think for that breeds competition. I think that breeds, a really competitive team spirit. So, and that's what we've seen so far in this preseason. So for that, I'm hopeful.
A question that might be, let's say, a little bit more difficult potentially to give us a full answer on, but the move for Danielle. This is a really interesting move because and Quakes fans, that watch the Aftershock know, I'm the data guy. I'm looking at that. And what I saw from JT over time was, an upward trend. And then, toward the middle of last season, that trend seemed to reverse. And according to many metrics, not all, but many metrics, he didn't have as good of a season as he had in 2021. What was it? What was the process around bringing in someone like Danielle? This feels very different in terms of the type of move you would typically associate to the Earthquakes. Number one. Number two, I wonder if is this one of those opportunities where everything you've been building infrastructure wise really kind of comes together to make an analysis of the type of player that you want in this situation, and how all that happened in this one. Am I off on that?
No, I think that's spot on. I think, some infrastructure additions and some process optimization that we have from a back office perspective led to us to analyze every position on the field in some unique and different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And then specifically to Daniel, look, we feel in him, we have a very elite shot stopper, right? That comes from a really good league that has, stood up in some really tough games. And so, never easy for a player to come in from a different country and kind of get settled into the States. But I think Daniel has shown that he's comfortable now within this group. And listen, that's not taking anything away from JT either, right? Who has been a starter in this league for sure.
And gone through a lot of change.
And, look, and that's also one of the reasons why we change our technical staff as well, and bringing in Aiden Brown, right? Who, for me, has a really good track record of developing some young and some of the league's best goalies, and a ton of MLS experience. And so something JT didn't have either last year, right? So now JT, Daniel, Emmy have one of the better goalkeeping coaches in the league. Within those three, they also have competition amongst themselves, which, may not be comfortable every day, but the way that this group has handled it professionally and pushing each other, I know it's going to help each and every one of those three goalies get better and get there. As far as starting or playing time, that's something that's going to be based on merit, and they're going to be competing in a really good way like they are right now. And let's see how it nets out. But I feel really good about this corp of goalies that we have and how we went about acquiring Daniel.
When you talk about process optimization in recruiting and building the infrastructure in the back office, I know Jamin is very plugged in, so might immediately grasp what that means. For fans, is there any way you can break that down in terms of what that actually means? Is it, Dad's team being more involved? That's, an area that the club has invested in heavily. What else is going on behind the scenes? What can you unpack what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I don't, in Major League Soccer, especially today, I don't feel like this is like a one-man job, right? That one GM is sitting there in one office and is making all the decisions. And I think that's not what our club wants either. In fact, I think one of the reasons why I was hired is because I'm a collaborative person that knows that I'm only going to be as strong as those that are around me as well. And so, one of my biggest off-season, plans was to make sure that from a back office perspective, from a process perspective, that we were doing things that would put us in a position to be successful, by being smart about every decision that is made. And I think in order to do that, at least for me, the way I do that is, bringing people together, asking them questions, making sure communication lines are extremely wide open, and then really going through things in a analytical and problematic or problem solving way to find the best answers. But yeah, so it's been increasing kind of the group there that provides some of the information and detail around making good decisions, and then pressure testing those decisions amongst ourselves, which is always fun. And then making a decision, and then look, when you make a decision, when you go out of that room, making sure that everyone is on the same team and is supportive of it.
What are the wildest ideas that you've heard in those pressure testing situations?
Alex, we don't have enough time. No, but none's off limits, right? Because what we're trying to do is test what is maybe historical, certainty in certain situations, and we're trying to think about things from every different angle. And so in order to do that, I think one of the things you need to do is just be open-minded and attack things from different angles that maybe haven't been attacked before.
Last question from me. I'm going to talk about homegrowns because you signed a couple in this offseason. You signed, Cruz Medina, recently, Nico Chakiris recently.
Yeah.
There seems to be, two classes. Not to ignore. Also, you got Michael Baudissimo, who qualifies as a homegrown and came out of Vancouver. But we've seen both the signings that are, these are high school kids, and but they seem ready to be able to take that professional step forward. And then there have now been a few that have come out of first college. And then how do you take a look at kind of homegrowns in general? Is it, hey, some kids we want to see have that college experience and we want to see how they mature through that. And some kids we're ready to take that leap on before they experience college. And how do you weigh that?
Yeah, look, I think that's what goes into it. Are they ready and at what age? But then I think another big factor in this that maybe gets overlooked is that, at least from my perspective, I try to put the player at the center of this part of it. And of course, the organization, we're a professional organization that is interested in signing professional soccer players.
Right.
That being said, just because that's our intent, one of our objectives is to make sure that we're doing right by these players, and which also means their families, and we're dealing with minors. And so it's as much listening to them and understanding their wants and needs versus kind of where we project them and what we think we can do to them to help them optimize into their professional careers. And to be quite honest with you, there's some players that, maybe don't want to be pros right now, but want to go on the educational path of it. And so we're very open-minded about that portion of it, knowing that there's not just one way to go from, being a 14, 15, 16-year-old player to being on our first team. And so, not just discounting those players that maybe pass on a homegrown contract or maybe aren't ready for a homegrown contract at that time,
Sure.
but enter the college ranks. And we do our, we put in a lot of work to continue to scout, especially our homegrown eligible players in college, knowing that, development's kind of a tricky thing and it's nonlinear. Sometimes there's some later developers. Sometimes a player needs a couple years in college to mature. And other times it's mom or dad that says, hey, we need to get some education in here before we think about being a pro. And then at other cases, it's, a player feels like he's ready at 14, 15, 16, right? And we're trying to support all of those avenues. So most importantly, it's case by case, and it's got to be kind of player centric, person centric there.
I have one last question as well. If you're thinking about, we might have a surprise guest appearance here soon. Final question. In terms of your long-term focus, thinking about maybe now the summer transfer window and what happens there, are you starting to think about your strategy there at all? Like, where is your long-term focus shifting now?
Yeah, the way that I view the way that I view kind of the roster construction and then changes kind of on a moving forward basis isn't just around kind of the windows, right? I think you have to kind of constantly be ahead of what you may need, okay? And to think of things that haven't yet happened. And so I think the best way to do that is to constantly be preparing for to improve the squad in any which way, shape, or form, right? Which encompasses also thinking about the young players coming in our system, understanding contracts and knowing that, a large part of this is you're going to have to be malleable as well. I think there's some players ready to kind of bust out and probably be deserving of a better contract or a contract extension. There may be players that, their time's running out or, it's the right time to move on, right? So there's a number of different factors that would make, changing or adding to or subtracting from the roster, applicable. And so because of all those reasons, I think the strategy should be not just, okay, we're a couple weeks or a month away from a window, let's gear up and get ready, but rather, hey, let's always be ready.
So what I'm hearing is the first day the transfer window opens, 5 signings lined up.
Yeah. It's funny too. Like you can be as prepared as you want, but until the window happens and until there's deadlines and until, then a lot of different stuff come as well. So even though we're going to be really, really prepared, it doesn't mean on day one of the window opening, that's the right time to make, move. Not to say that there won't be signings. I'm just saying it doesn't always happen that way either. So.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really enjoyed having you. And, best of luck in the final preseason game. But finally, the regular season is going to get to start, and I'm sure you can't wait.
I'm ready for the season to start. Yeah, for sure. The guys have put a lot of good work into it. The staff, a lot of new pieces of the staff as well. They've been working really hard. And look, I think our results in preseason have been really good, but results in preseason don't mean anything. So let's see when the bright lights are on if this whole team is ready to go. Based on all the things I've seen so far, I think we're ready.
And we want you to know you always have an open line to the Aftershock show. If you're watching after any games and we say something stupid, you can call us up on the hotline.
Sure about that?
And
I'm sure about that. The hotline. Okay. All right.
So,
reach us.
Chris Leitch is calling right now. Put him on.
No, appreciate you guys covering the team. You guys do a great job, and I'll tune in a little more regularly here, kind of moving forward. But appreciate you guys covering us and taking such a big interest in what we do.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.